Wizards, the token spellcaster of Dungeons and Dragons since the very beginning. We often have these recurring themes of scholarly features and ambition when tied with wizards. Very book smart. Often, you have like the necromancy is the one who went too far with that ambition, or others who use it for various means, like some protect their friends with it, others rise up the social ladder through manipulation, things like that. But a wizard doesn't have to fall into those stereotypes. Just like on all the other class flavors, there is such an expansive world that we can explore. You could be a wizard, like a blade singer whose study is that of a different kind, that of the blade. Their intelligence is tactical rather than scholarly, a keen eye to take down their opponent's defenses. Many other subclasses can fit into this more war-oriented element, like war magic, abjuration for defense, things like that. It could also be like a dropout wizard who just has a great gift of natural learning, but they don't always put in the effort to do so. Or a wizard like Ricewind from Discworld, where the spells are stored in their subconscious and then coming out whenever needed. Very like wild magic, chaosy, you know. Or maybe your Scribe's wizard who has a sentient spellbook is like the smart one in the group, and you're merely kind of a vessel, like a multicast warlock at work, the patron, filling your head with spells. You could also be siphoning and collecting the power of the spells rather than learning it, like Hemorrhagy from the Mistborn series, where you can like spike people and suck out their power and then use it for yourself, essentially. From spellcasters you've killed, which that's very dark, and it's for a very specific campaign. But the point is that it doesn't have to be through just learning that you get these spells, right? Your spell book, speaking of which, can be anything from the typical tome to spikes, as we mentioned, to tattoos. Tattoos is probably one of the funnest, most fun options flavor-wise. Like a tattoo, a glyph on your body, and it's you like tapping into them to use the power. And you can have different designs for different ones. Like you get to choose what a fireball tattoo looks like, which is a lot of fun, especially for character art and things like that. Especially if you're an artist. One of my wizards used jewelry as spells, like a box of jewelry that he could wear. Like all his prepared spells, were among those different jewel pieces, and he could put a certain amount on. There's a good number of flavor options in Xanathar's. A tome could be full of glyphs, readable by only you, completely blank and only visible when you speak like the command word. You could be a Dampier who steals memories and knowledge, a Warforged who implements them into like a database of some sort. And then there's actual casting of the spells. Like you could be like Caleb in Critical Role, who describes his spells very vividly, his use of the components. You could mess with the verbal components too. Actual words like limericks if you're more bardic, nonsense or something translated into like Elvish. This can get tedious for every spell, but in a moment when you need it, or that that epic moment, it can be a lot of fun to take advantage of that. Drawing glyphs like Doctor Strange, flipping off enemies as a dramatic component. Air guitar, it's your spell, do what you want. Maybe your eyes glow when you cast certain spells, floating above the ground as the moment the Graviturgy wizard commands gravity to be theirs. Or maybe your body grows cold from the exothermic reaction of fireball, momentarily weaken you as you expel a massive amount of energy from your body. Or maybe you flourish your sword and cast spells from it like a melee attack. Or dancing as a somatic component, as we mentioned in the Bard video. You can become a conduit for magical energy, a vessel for pure raw weave magic, or that of your patron if you have one. I won't go into specific styles because there's just so many, but those are just some examples for stuff. Now, subclasses, there's so many. I'll try to get through them. Okay, Necromancy. You can carry soul trinkets of the people that you killed, and then use them for your power. Like that could be your spellcasting. Even like loved ones who maybe you've collected the souls to them, and you like all your husk bodies that you create from Necromancy are filled with those of your loved ones, so they have brief life in the forms of these temporary spells. Or maybe a more Frankenstein mad one who channels like power into the undead to let them live again. Sewing bodies together, filling their blood with salt to make them fight from the pain. A spiritual necromancer who summons the spirits of the dead to fight in them, sort of like a ancestral barb type thing. A body shifting necromancer who hops between the souls of the undead to fight as them. An overly ambitious necromancer trying to build an army, save everyone, or to become a lich. Necromancy, there's a ton of time people in media, right? You have anything from Doctor Who to Marty McFly. Maybe your spellbook is a device you inherited, which you can cast magic from. Traveling through time as the dying and wish of the inventor's life to correct certain things, and you're trying to make it work enough. Again, to do that, you could be an inventor yourself, close to a breakthrough, or from another time strand in the current timeline. You could be similar to a necromancer where you want to save your loved ones and you have to, figure out how to go through time to do that. But at what cost? Maybe you're a time robber, or well, there's just so many different time possibilities. There's a lot of tropes for that. But of course, this is definitely one you want to have to talk to your DM about, because Necromancy can get really wild. Graviturgy. Now, what's interesting about this is, well, you could just be something where you want to manipulate the rules of gravity, right? It's also very cosmos related if you look at the Graviturgy spells related to it. So maybe you want to seek out the cosmos as a source of power, or you can be an astronomer who's worried about like a fast approaching meteor or something, and you want to have the power to stop it. You could be a wanderer who seeks to be more aligned with the stars. You could be a warrior who uses graviturgy manipulation to fight, like a Windrunners from the Stormlight Archive. There's also, graviturgy is also pretty common in media too. It's always just fun to use. So like it's honestly kind of just flavor for like fighting or like a power that you have. Because again, wizard, it doesn't really have to be you being learned. It could just be like almost just like superpowers, kind of. Well, that's also sorcerer, but that too. Evocation, where you could be for the kind of government or involved in the army, right? Because it's very war-based, obviously. You could be almost like an artificer blowing stuff up. It's very weird as like bombs or something. Driven by ambition to push spells to their limit. Again, this kind of war wizard aspect works for a lot of things, like war magic, obviously, right? And abjuration. War magic and abjuration are almost interchangeable because of their focus on defense. But war magic is more like countering, like using the enemy's like spells against them. That's also a cool trope in media, which you can really manipulate with. Abjurers, they could maybe want to turn to abjuration after losing someone near to them. A frail wizard who survives by using the ward. A fighter whose goal is to become unkillable through the ward. It's, again, there's a lot of fun. While this is not like hugely abjuration based, it just shows the kind of crazy things people think of. Like one of my player in my previous campaign, they were like a 10-year-old child, and they had a construct companion, and they were an abjuration wizard. So they to kind of divide it between them. It was this really kind of fun thing. It's like how abjuration is the one thing that could protect a child, and that's sort of like they were gifted that ability, right? So you can get really creative with it. Enchantment, and now enchantment is an interesting one. You could be very social manipulation based, where you could be a politician trying to rise up, influencing others, like an advisor figure, very, very political, a gambler or con man who tricks people with that, just a general trickster. You could be someone who got aberrant powers to use psionic abilities, or basically just there's that whole, psionic world you can really mess with, which is always fun. Again, you could be like the sort of mind vampire thing. Or maybe someone who enhances their allies through enchantment, because it's also like a buffing thing. Maybe they feel like they can't be the hero themselves, so they enhance their allies. Or maybe like there's this interesting thing where their consciousness can kind of like a Jarvis type thing, where they kind of Iron Man with the other person by giving them, sort of spreading their consciousness. I don't know, I'm kind of just spitting out this stuff at this point. Divination, also a very fun one. tarot cards and spirit boards to kind of tell fate as a fortune teller, a deeply spiritual person who confronts their god for events, the cursed hero who can see the future in their own fate, and it scares them, so they're very hesitant to look into their illusion. You could be just a typical trickster. Also related to aberrant forces to make people see things that aren't really there. Wreathed in shadows and shaping them to your will. A deeply creative person who makes their ideas a reality with illusions. Or maybe to give themselves friends or imagine a better life for themselves. Transmutation, you could be the alchemist of old, changing properties of matter. A biomage who alters the body to enhance themselves and others. Perhaps you want to make things the perfect versions of themselves, or change the metamorphosis. This is a metamorphosis. I know there's more, and we brushed on some earlier, like the Blade Singer and things like that. But as you can see, the possibilities are extremely extensive with flavor, and I know you can probably think of way better things than I can. So just, you know, keep those gears turning. And just remember, as I mentioned earlier, the wizard is a very vanilla spellcaster, just like the sorcerer, but like honestly tied down less from flavor because they're so generic and just based in the schools for the most part. And there's so many options too, which means that you can just kind of tack on whatever character you like to the wizard and just change it, not make them, you know, necessarily, because they're not just a studious person, right? You can get the powers other ways, as we mentioned before. So honestly, it's just about combining character and then explanation, which is always fun. So keep that in mind. Thank you for watching. This is Sean for Decadentian, signing out.